biggest thing that me, Martin and Vladimir worked on while I was at Shades of Noir was like the Phase 2 launch party, which I had at High Holborn in the boardroom. It was really good fun because we had some speakers, like some lecturers from UAL, some people outside of UAL, and then we had some BME practitioners as well. And I think it was just a really good evening because we kind of, for once, there was actually that discussion happening that rarely ever happens unless it's kind of an equality and diversity event, and then nothing really happens with that conversation. People could actually just voice whatever they wanted to in a very kind of open and understanding space, which I know sounds a bit cliche and cringy, but that's definitely what's needed with this subject, because there's kind of a lot of people like, I don't want to say pussyfooting, but like there's a lot of, I don't know, people just don't really want to touch that subject, do they? Especially perhaps if you're white, say, because then you're worried about being called a racist, or there's kind of that connotation that where it is quite a highly emotional and charged subject, that people are just, I think, maybe find it easier not to touch it. And then on the flip side, maybe they don't want to touch that subject because they're not really informed enough. So to just have that evening where you could actually just be completely open and maybe find out a bit more about it or get involved in the conversation, which is absolutely fantastic. And it was a really good experience for me, Martin and Vladimir as well, as like as students kind of putting on that event. So yeah, it's a fantastic night. Well, obviously, I'm not like from a BME background, but one of the reasons that I came to Aisha and was really keen to get involved in Shades of Noir is I was helped through university by the Helena Kennedy Foundation, which is a fantastic organisation that helps people from, say, like kind of poorer or less advantaged backgrounds. So I kind of had an angle on perhaps what it's kind of like to not be part of the norm, say, or norm is probably the wrong word, but you know what I mean, from a slightly less advantaged background. But I think in terms of being like a white woman in the Shades of Noir community, there was never like any barriers or anything. And I think it was kind of interesting to actually learn more myself. Like one of the events that I went to was a launch, or kind of like a focus group for Afro Noir, which is a magazine for black women specifically, because they feel that all the magazines out there were kind of like about hair and kind of only touched one part of being kind of a black woman. So like to be in a discussion with that, where they were kind of picking apart women's magazines and how sort of black and white women are represented in the media, was absolutely like fascinating. And it's really good, I think, if you can broaden your kind of, I don't know, understanding of different cultures, where people have come from and everything like that. So for me, if anything, it was just a massive bonus, just to be able to kind of find out lots about other people, really. I think definitely within trying to get more young people into kind of workplaces to do like work experience and things, because I know the last publisher that I was with, Simeon Publishing, I signed them up with Go Think Big, which is a fantastic organisation run by Bauer Media and OT, and it's giving people opportunities to kind of get access to things they might not have access to, because it's ridiculous when you think about it, how many people are actually in a position of power, and how if they just gave somebody a leg up, like you could just change somebody's life irreparably. So like just having those opportunities where you can do that for somebody, I think that's what I've taken from Shades, that wherever you can, just try and involve different people, because actually when you're in a workplace and you have younger people come in, it's fantastic, because they'll look at something you're doing and be like, that's ridiculous, like look at this new app I've discovered and how much quicker it can be to do it this way. And then you're not losing touch of kind of like the outside world, which I know sounds ridiculous, but I think you have a lot of people maybe in office jobs or higher up in organisations who have just lost touch a little bit because they're not having conversations with people who are maybe outside their daily lives. So I think that's probably what hopefully longer term will always stay with me from Shades of Noir. I think to have like a group, like a task group like Shades of Noir is vital for kind of higher education and further education as it continues, especially now, because where maintenance grants have recently been cut, and kind of changes that we have to education, especially with fees. I know it increased a while ago to £9,000, but university should be something that you have to work towards, like it shouldn't just be given out, but at the same time it's becoming less and less accessible. It's kind of interesting that somebody that I know who works at University of the Arts London told me when they were applying to university that it was cheaper for them, not cheaper, they got more money from going to university than they would do when they were on the dole. That is a very different story for students now. And it shouldn't be something that is only accessible to people from privileged backgrounds, because that's the totally wrong way of doing it. So to have something like Shades of Noir that's going to unpick curriculums and unpick maybe things that are going on that other people aren't aware of is absolutely vital. And it's just a shame that we can't be having more of these conversations, because I feel sometimes with something as quite highly charged as like chatting about BME differential degree attainment, which is a massive thing, not just for University of the Arts London even, it's like nationwide. I think there's often this common thing that happens where it will just be kind of talked about in a kind of framework. So we need to have like a diversity day to kind of tick box almost. That sounds really cynical and horrible, and I'm sure people who set up those sessions, that's not always how they're viewing it, but sometimes when you go to those sessions, that kind of is how it feels, because you have all these great discussions, people tell all these stories that you might not be aware of even's going on, and then that day kind of finishes and it's kind of wrapped up. And then that's it, and it's kind of like, okay, well, we've done that this year, we'll do another one in a year's time, and that's not really enough. Like somebody like the current Shades of Noir team always kind of need to be pushing people in higher positions in universities to be aware of like these things that are going on, because then hopefully they'll be able to take change on it, because maybe it's that they're not even aware that it's going on, or maybe they don't have any personal experience of it. So to just have somebody who's constantly like trying to make it somebody's top of their agenda is absolutely fantastic. I think Shades of Noir is super easy to get involved with, which is a fantastic thing about it, because it covers such a broad range of subjects. You've kind of got from theatre to art to graphic design, kind of all the courses that UAL has and maybe other art institutions. So you can either kind of write a blog perhaps, or you can get involved on social media. I know Shades of Noir is very generous in kind of sharing other people's social media, which is fantastic. So yeah, there's such a wide range to get involved, and even if you're perhaps an up-and-coming creative practitioner and you want your work shared, just get in touch with the team, because they're more than happy to kind of set up an interview with you or showcase their work.